Easy Polish with Dorota Cooper. Absolutely necessary Polish phrases to sound like a Polish native. How to introduce yourself in Polish. All you need to know. If you have ever done a Polish language course, you have certainly spent a considerable amount of time learning how to introduce yourself in Polish. But if you were to meet a Polish person for the first time at this very moment, would you be prepared to speak about yourself in a natural, convincing way? Probably not. Introductions only make up a tiny fraction of our conversations. The language we use when we first meet somebody is incredibly important. After all, we only get one shot at making a first impression, not to mention that the pressure feels much higher when we are supposed to introduce ourselves in a foreign language. If you want to ace your way through every introduction in Polish, you will need to prepare your very own script and study it carefully. This film will help you gather all the essential information and arrange it into neat Polish sentences. Greetings. Nice to meet you in Polish. When you meet a Polish person, whether for the first or the 100th time, you will want to use an appropriate greeting to start off the conversation on the right foot. To learn about all the ways you can greet others in Polish, take a look at part 1, How to Say Hello. Once you have said hello and shook hands, it is a good idea to follow up with nice to meet you. The most universal way to do this is to simply say miło mi. Before I will tell you essential phrases, it will be helpful to draw the distinction between informal and formal contexts in Polish. When talking to family, friends, or colleagues in Polish, you are expected to use informal forms of address. These will almost always involve the pronoun ty, regular you, in various grammatical cases. You will mostly see the forms cię, ciebie, and tobą. When talking to strangers or people you are in a professional relationship with, Poles will almost always use formal forms of address. Depending on whom you are talking to, these will contain forms of the formal you pronoun pan for male addresses, pani for female addresses, or państwo for multiple addressees regardless of the gender. A quite informal way to say nice to meet you in Polish is to say miło mi cię poznać, which is a literal equivalent of the English phrase. To say nice to meet you in a formal situation, use a formal pronoun instead and say miło mi pana poznać when addressing a man, miło mi panią poznać when addressing a woman, or miło mi państwa poznać when addressing more than one person. Cała przyjemność po mojej stronie is a polite and graceful Polish equivalent of the pleasure is all mine. Finally, if you would like to wrap up a greeting with a Polish person by asking how they are doing, you can learn the most appropriate phrase in "How are you?" in my video Absolutely Necessary Polish Phrases to Sound Like a Polish Native. How are you? Part 4. To wszystko na dzisiaj. Do zobaczenia.